Welcome back to the program. I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief of Real Clear Politics, talking now with Eric Spitz, who's a friend of the show and a friend of Real Clear. He's written another column for us, and this one's interesting because the Hunter Biden pardon, been a lot written about it, but not by people who know Hunter Biden personally or who have a nuanced view. And Eric fits both of those descriptions. Eric, just tell our viewers and our listeners what what you think is the primary thing that they should keep in mind when evaluating whether President Biden did the right thing or the wrong thing in pardoning his son.
I think they should keep in mind that Hunter is a person who is an addict, who went through difficult times. He has paid the price. It might not look pretty in the sense that you can always go back into history and show where he fell. In fact, he did it himself. He wrote a tell-all book that I read, and it's gory. It's no holds barred. He talks about everything, and after reading it, you don't really end up feeling sorry for him as much as you understand that there's somebody who thinks differently than, say, normal. And I've seen that personally. I've had family members in the grips of addiction, and it changes them. It's a very powerful, overwhelming force.
Now, tell our listeners you've known Hunter Biden all your adult life. Where'd you two meet?
We met near to the first few weeks of college. I met his
At
brother
at
Beau
Penn?
at the University of Pennsylvania. I met his brother Beau on the first day of school. He was my next door neighbor in the quad. And that meant I met Hunter pretty soon thereafter. They were pretty tight. I would imagine that the years that they were in college were probably the least tight that they were in their lives. Uh, I know afterwards they were extremely tight, and I know before that they're Irish twins.
So yeah. So what did you notice about Hunter Biden in those days that all these years later going to inform what did you notice that made you was there anything that you saw that he was going to have the kind of problems he developed? What was he like as a young man?
He was a hothead. I
Yeah.
put that in my essay. He was the protector of his brother. His brother was he didn't drink in college. That's
Bo
kind
Bo
of
was
a
Bo was a straight arrow.
he was a straight arrow.
Yeah.
And but he was a funny guy. He was popular. He was part of the in crowd.
I
But
I
he
in,
just
I
couldn't drink.
interviewed Bo once, and I found him very charismatic, a very very appealing person, and less like Hunter and Joe Biden. He didn't brag a lot. He was a more, I don't say normal. It's not the correct word. A more contained person. In some ways a more serious person. Is that was your impression?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was a serious person. That's a great way to describe him as a college student. Imagine that you're going to school with someone who's a serious person, but he's cracking jokes in the back of the room and he's trying to make everybody laugh. But he's at the time he knew that he was the one to take the family reins.
Now, there's a couple of, I'm talking here, to Eric Spitz, who former co-owner of the Orange County Register and frequent a contributor to Real Clear Politics. Grew up in the East, but has lived in California for some time. Eric, you write about the transactional nature of today's politics in a way that, I wasn't entirely convinced. I edited that piece, but I wanted you to have your say. But explain to me why you think that Joe Biden felt that this is okay to do in today's environment, despite saying he wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that saying he would and then changing his mind was a mistake. There's no doubt that if he had to do it over again, he wouldn't have, kind of gone back on his word. That said, the reason that he did it is because the idea of not doing it was unimaginable. And that's what I mean by transactional nature. It's not just politics, it's our world. Everything is associated with or can get boiled down to a yes no decision, and then that decision can get analyzed over and over and over again, and it does. And that's what I mean by the transactional nature, in the sense that what was the choices? It was either A or B. And if he chose B, which is not to pardon his son, he would have gone down in history as a laughingstock.
Hmm. You think that, yeah, you think he would have paid a price either way. That's an interesting way to think about it. All right, let's get into that a little more. So he made pretty unequivocally, said he wouldn't do it, and his press secretary was even more unequivocal. Wouldn't pardon his son, wouldn't interfere, would let the criminal justice system play out. I wonder, when he first said that, he was intending to run for re-election. Karine Jean-Pierre was repeating it after Kamala Harris was the nominee. Was there some thought that Harris would do it? I don't think Biden expected Donald Trump to win the election. And did Trump's winning the election change the equation for them? What's your? I'm asking you to speculate, really, but it'd be informed speculation because you know the family.
I'm going to take it off the board. I think that he did it after a weekend with Hunter, where Hunter had a cudgel to lay on his father, which is, I'm sober. And if you want me to stay sober, I need some help.
Well, that'd be tough. Look, you're a parent. I'm a parent. We think we do almost anything for our kids. And to see your child go to prison, even if you made a promise to the country and meant it at the time, sitting there now facing it, it's imminent. It could happen any month. Federal prison. Hunter Biden might have gone in and done his time, might have come out a stronger guy, but you don't know that. And to think Joe Biden's 82, to think of him passing away, being on his deathbed, and Hunter in prison, I think a normal person ought to be able to empathize with him. And if you can't empathize with that, I'd submit you're just too partisan for your own good. You agree with that?
I would agree. I also think it's pretty easy to get around the addiction conversation and to understand that people do things when they are under the influence of catastrophic forces that they can't control. And should they be held accountable? Yes. To my mind, he was held quite accountable relative to the crimes that he committed, say, if he were someone else that didn't have the Biden last name.
You that's true, but that cuts both ways. If he didn't have the Biden last name, some Ukrainian, energy company wouldn't have paid him millions of dollars to be on their board. He doesn't speak Ukraine. He doesn't speak the language. He knows nothing about the energy business. I mean, he traded on the name, and then when it all hit the fan, he and the president said, "Oh, but he wouldn't be on their scrutiny except if he had my name." And it seemed to me that they want it both ways.
Oh, that's not my point. My point is he paid the price already. So he paid more of a price than he would normally have paid had he not been the president's son. So therefore, when the president wants to come back and pardon him,
that gun charge wouldn't have been brought against somebody else, probably.
correct.
Not paying your taxes because you were hiding money you got from Ukraine. Well, Paul Manafort
went the money back, which ultimately
Paul Manafort went to prison for the same crime. I mean, I guess what people say, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, Eric. You and I are friends, but what I'm trying to say is that I think people think he didn't pay the price. I think
fair enough.
He got off, in the end without paying his dues.
Again, I would suggest that that's a matter of degree, right? He paid a price. Do you think it was enough? I don't know. Maybe I think it's enough and you don't think it's enough, but he definitely paid a price.
Well, look, yeah, that's right. Keep going. Sorry.
And the point is that what we're not continuing to consider is that he was in the throes of addiction. Paul Manafort wasn't.
Well, he may have been addicted to something else. Yeah, I hear you. Here's the one thing, and your column wasn't about this. I'm not one of these people who, I'll review a book and say, this author, his book's okay, but he really should have written about this, because I don't think that's fair. And you were addressing what you've been talking about. But there is this other matter I want to ask you about, because you pay attention to politics so closely. And that is, all right, let's just say, let's let's stipulate, just for the purpose of this question, that Joe Biden meant what he said and then changed his mind for the most human of reasons. He's a father. And that's kind of where I lean. But the Democrats and the friends of the Biden and some of these liberals and commentators on MSNBC and CNN, they went and rode with this for a year and just beat the living crap out of Donald Trump and the Republicans. And they said, this Biden won't even pardon his own son. This shows what it really means to be presidential. This shows how corrupt and rotten Donald Trump is, and what a contrast he is to this wonderful president who wouldn't even pardon his own son. That, I think, has left a bad taste in people's mouth.
And I would blame the reporters who wrote a bad story.
Well,
because
it was these commentators.
Story about something that isn't done yet.
Yeah, I'm not talking. Yeah, I hear you, but they weren't just reporters; they were these commentators on the cable. You know, the talking heads.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I blame them. I think that's a function of seeing the story half full or half done and declaring victory. He didn't ultimately make the choice that they gave him credit for, so they shouldn't have given him credit for it.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. All right, you've been listening to Eric Spitz, former owner of the Orange County Register and a columnist, an activist in so many different intriguing areas. And I urge you to read his piece. It's on our page on Real Clear Politics on Wednesday, December 18th. You've been listening to RCP on SiriusXM Radio or on our podcast. We urge you to come back again tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. on the radio in California, where Eric lives, 6 p.m. here in the East. Or you can go to our site and find our podcast and download it, or just listen to it anytime you want. Good evening.